All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the regular meeting, 17 November regular meeting of the Fayette County Commission. You want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Certified, you said at what time?
12:45.
Thank you, Greenbrier County.
What I said.
I'll have to stay late. All right. Do we have exoneration orders to combine or divide? I don't see anybody.
No one's here.
I think that's a no, unless they come in. Second half of payroll.
I move to approve the second half payroll payable on November 30th.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now, really, the concern is sheriff lounge. Can ask him to come. I'm going to skip by that for the time being. But before we approve vouchers and invoices, I want to address the concern I have with them. There are no meeting minutes, state settlements. There are some outstanding meeting minutes.
Can I just throw it at you?
Would you stand in the corner? It's not a full-page piece,
It's nice to see a one-page document here. I'm gonna go ahead and move that we approve the state settlement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, you want to start down the city? So the first thing, I think they would be. Are they on? I don't think we like them. This was about these from the last time. Yeah, I think so.
You might want to ask if there's anybody from AUP on the call.
Is there anyone from AEP on the call? Okay, we'll skip that item. Civil Walker.
Okay, so this is that lease for, I think it's the power site. Initially, they. So, and I think you looked at this. We signed this lease to allow us to use the land of 911.
I'm going to approve the lease.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. That was number 2, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Make sure that I'm on the right spot.
Okay, let's switch to another letter. Number 4.
So this is the one we talked about when we have to the state emergency management agreement and here.
Yes, good. So we want
Motion manager. And director. Yes.
I move we approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
2 letters.
So they've been waiting to do something wrong. Or you want to wait till he's out of the meeting? They signed it.
2 of them.
Put some stickers on there. I'll stick to it on. want this to be after the.
I think you can explain it. I was just, she could explain it now because I think she's next on the agenda. However you want to do it.
I want it, Debbie.
Good morning.
Morning.
The active grant was put in by the Chief Advisory Board, and it's for $5,000 for a roll-up pickleball court.
Mhm.
So the grant was for $5,000. You were awarded $5,000. The cost is $5,000. So we are using the entire grant, and it's the purpose is to partner with West Virginia and other local partners. These sort of memorial, so we can just roll it out, add the net, ball, brackets, and have pickleball.
Okay, and what are we approving?
You are approving that we will accept the $5,000 so that we can then purchase the court.
I move that we accept the 5,000.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
She has. They had asked for the RV and the campground running. So that we refer to the plan.
Mhm. What do you have?
I don't have, so who asked for the RV?
The commission, I believe.
Yeah, okay. So we do, in our zoning, we have the word RV.
Mhm.
How many regulations, it just, if your RV park is in B3. So you guys would have to add. Like an ordinance. I think Ann said this did. Right. Right there, right there.
We have been wrangling with this for 6 months, and we will have reading this evening, and we'll approve it in December.
I knew they had
Can you
one.
get us a draft? That's what we've got to submit to the planning commission, or what, how's it work?
So normally, I mean, it's an ordinance, so it's, I gave a sample. This is Raleigh County, since they're the closest to us. The first thing, we don't have a definition of an RV. This person we need to add. FEMA, and I gave you guys a definition at Raleigh. We can not reinvent the wheel and just use theirs. Or I can just type this up and then you guys can add. And then basically, once we get that, we present the ordinance to the planning.
Then they come back with recommendations.
They can either just put that to the guys' ordinance or say, hey, we don't like this section, and then you guys.
The commission, and then the commission can change it if they want.
So are you guys looking at strictly RV parks? Because another issue we have is people putting RVs on their property and living in them.
Mhm.
And glamping and everything else.
And glamping, and we have a lot of people that are just putting RV in their front yards and Airbnb it. I don't have any way to regulate it because I don't have an ordinance that says you can't do it.
So we have like, we're gonna.
I mean, Raleigh
maximum
County,
stay.
yeah, and that Raleigh
Provisions.
County does not have that, and I know that was a big issue. I mean, basically, Raleigh County says, no recreation vehicle shall be used for living, sleeping, or housekeeping purposes, except in the approved RV park and manufactured home park. I mean, because we don't have anything telling they can't do it, but RVs by FEMA standards, they're not really supposed to do it. So winter time here, I mean, people try to plug in those electric heaters and they're gonna have.
Yeah, so
Okay.
even grandfather and the.
Is that what that- I read the email, but I
And-
don't remember what all that-
Yeah.
There's a lot to it, really.
Does yours have something that people existing stuff with grandfather in? Or?
Yours is more RV park, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does Raleigh County have any grandfathered in for the past?
Well, I think basically the way, I think basically anything that's prior, you can't go back and tell them they can move it because it's the date that the ordinance is adopted. Is that-
Generally speaking, yes.
But something has to be like put in there to that effect or something, shouldn't it?
Sorry.
The way the grandfather issues, shouldn't something be put in there or does it matter?
So we have the word non-conforming in our ordinance, and non-conforming means anything that was done prior to the adoption of the ordinance. So, I mean, basically, you're amending our zoning ordinance to add, if you wanted to add an RV recreational park requirement, which basically is gonna say, you don't have an RV park or RV in an RV park, and then these are the stipulations to have an RV park.
So basically, we come up with some draft language, submit it to the planning commission.
Yes.
It comes back to us.
Yeah, they can either accept how you guys have it, or if they don't like things, they can say, well, we don't. Yeah, you guys would submit, I mean, I can type something up and you guys, and then we can present that.
Okay, let's do that. With these additional provisions, that can stay and just the language of Michael Taylor.
Now,
For me.
How, what do you guys want me to do for maximum stay? Do you have maximum stay? What do you?
14 days. 14
Will
days.
be, will be 30. Make it 30 days, no permanent. Yes.
I think the standard around.
The state parks
is 14. 14 days.
Federal is 14.
State 14 also.
Don't know about the state.
The state legislature has definition of what an RV is, but there is a definition of permanent.
What are some of these parks that uses it every other weekend or something like that? Is that permanent?
Yeah, but it's at their own location or is it?
We're gonna have to have like consecutive days or something like that. I mean, and then, you know, on the state rule, they'll just move to one campsite on the same spot.
Exactly.
One concern I have is that we don't preclude our draft guys from being able to have a place to stay because they have a sustained need.
Are they staying on, where are they staying?
Sometimes, well, he probably knows better than I do, but I know some of them stay at campgrounds and things like that.
So I mean, if they're a campground,
If they're an employee of operation.
I mean, that would be the thing. I think that if they're already staying in an existing campground, it would be non-conforming grandfather. Right?
If that's been going on with that particular campaign, yeah.
Yeah, I think they have.
So I think the biggest thing is going forward is people just setting up 2 or 3 campers and then living in them. I mean, because I don't think they technically shouldn't, even by state standard, you're not supposed to live in them. So the raft guys technically doing what the law says, but
Well, see, then you're gonna run into people that sell Christmas trees, like the people out at Walmart or the fireworks. They stay in them for 3 or 4 weeks prior to the sale.
Can they get a special permit for
It has
Yeah, I
to be
mean,
a
that?
special
You can
use
control
permit.
that for permit.
so our zoning ordinance actually says any structure less than 20 foot wide can go through the horizontal fields. So that would kind of be an attack on this, is if someone really, for whatever reason, they need to stay in it for a amount of time, they can actually come to the board of zoning appeals and say, hey, I need to every year stay in this RV. My biggest concern is people living all the time. I mean, that's mine. I don't know what, you know, as far as your guys, but my biggest concern is we have a lot of people that live in RV and they're there for 3 months and then they're there for 20 years. And actually, I mean, the state legislature code actually says not for permanent.
You know, people living in campers with 3 and 4 campers on one small lot needs to be taken care of.
Why don't you start with a draft,
Okay,
and then we'll take a look at it, and try to
yeah, I think what'll happen
have
is,
some of these things in mind, maybe research what others are doing.
yeah, I mean, I've got,
Other areas.
theirs is online, so I can.
Well,
Thanks.
Other states too, where
Yeah,
Yeah.
even Cheat River up north and stuff.
Yeah,
Check, see what that is.
we looked at Jefferson. Yeah, theirs.
Yeah.
Theirs is very strict.
Very.
Raleigh County was a little less safe. So what I need to do is I'll draft up something, I'll send it to you guys, we'll get something that's neater, and then I will actually have to get an information, and you'll have to be request the planning commission. If that makes sense.
we can do that.
I'll try to do that. I'll use Raleigh's and then I'll have that some standards for it.
Just around the area
there's other
A
states.
lot of times.
And most campgrounds do have a limit on, you know, resident campground.
What time frame do you think, Angela?
I mean, I could have a draft. Don't do next week. 'cause I'm not sure.
We don't have anything next week.
I mean, the first of December, I can.
So our
December,
next meeting is 27.
yeah, December 12th.
Yeah, we go ahead and just, with the recommendations for planning.
Right. AEP's on the phone now, if you want to go back.
Okay, go back to the AEP item. Okay. Go ahead and tell us about this easement. Normally, we like to have somebody at the meetings if they have something on our agenda. Well, it's got this film. Dennis, you like?
Is that muted on our end?
You might be muted on your end.
You mess up for us, Kevin?
You getting married today or something?
I wonder, funeral job interview? All right, we should have trouble. All right, we'll just move on, and we might go squeeze another shorty or two in there. Let's go to the VFW one. Yeah, at some prior meeting, we agreed to allocate $10,000 for the VFW in town of Anstead to refurbish the flagpole and get a new flag up. That's happened. There was some remaining funding left, and Mayor Van Steen asked us to decide what to do with it, and the VFW has asked that it be donated to, I think it's 15,000 actually, to be donated to the VFW for some additional upgrades to its facility. I have been in that facility as a member, and I believe they need it. So I'm going to move, and do you know what the amount is, Steve, that was remaining? It was slightly under half of it or something, wasn't it? Like, you guys were able to get the flagpole down for less than 10. Probably around $7,000. Okay, so just over $6,000. I'm gonna move that we approve the Mayor Vanstead to provide those remaining funds to VFW for its use to upgrade its facility in Anstead.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
And then 11 can be postponed.
Yes, and item 11, Jeff Proctor reached out to me, said he's gonna be meeting with, or discussing with Erica Vargas of the state about, I guess, fees, and they're trying to get their bottom line for the purchase agreement for Wolf Creek Park. And so he wants to postpone his request for some contribution to legal fees until December 7th. So I move we postpone that item.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we did opening.
One bid.
It's kind of easy. I keep ending up with sheepskins in my.
It's over here.
I've got my own, and I'm just like, trying to keep my desk clean, and I end up with other people's stuff up here all the time. Okay, so we've got, Dan Hill has bid on it.
He was the only one that attended our bid meeting.
Where's the bottom line?
Big number problem.
I wish they put it on page
I think we
one,
should
you know,
request that.
highlight it. Oh, yes.
That is.
It's a huge number, it's like, $637,000 and $4.40. $637,000, $4.40. Is the bid. Okay. Now we know.
I have a question. Can we also look at what it would cost to have someone put in a pool? It may be, because is there a warranty on this repair?
There is not.
Okay, so I
They
would,
will not provide a warranty.
to put $600 some thousand in it. I just think it's crazy without a warranty. I think that we should also look at what's the cost of just replacing it.
Well, a cost benefit analysis, how much you make?
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna be difficult. The last year that we really got good numbers from the pool was really pre-pandemic.
I think those numbers are fair to examine for.
I haven't looked at like last year. I looked at this year compared to the prior year, and it's $15,000 loss after the end of October. So, I don't know. And I think that's just an issue. That's why I think people were still reserving the shelters because they expected there to be a pool.
Yep, and I think, you know, he's involved in camps and everything else into this too, so it's, I mean, we can put it all together into the cost analysis, but it's not just the pool options.
I mean, whatever you think, if it's a good investment, the park board needs to come to us with a recommendation about next steps.
So would you like me to put a RFP out for a new pool?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
either that or we turn it into a paddleball course when you're done.
Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America, they tell me.
But, I would recommend doing a RFP for pool replacement.
Definitely pool replacement, if the park board feels like the ball might be the answer, maybe just put out for a bid for that. I mean, give us some options and see. Feel free to ask for whatever proposals you need to get some numbers on that stuff.
Will do that.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, Ruth, get back up.
Hey, people on there now.
You guys not want to vote
Okay.
anything in there?
AEP.
Let me get unmuted.
Okay, we're unmuting you now.
Good.
Okay, AEP, could you present on the proposed easement, please?
Sure. Can everyone hear me now? Okay.
Mhm.
Low. Hold on just a second, we'll go work on your volume real quick.
I've got it turned up.
Is it turned?
Try now.
Could you speak again, please?
About now.
That's better.
Okay. Well, thank you for your patience. I do, do thank you. I know that, we've used a couple of different video systems at the power company. And so I know that sometimes some of them don't, play well with our system. And if I'd known that, I would have just come in person, and I do apologize. I want to thank the, commission for entertaining their request, first of all. And so this request is related to, an overhead electric service that we've been requested by American Water to provide. And it would involve tapping off existing facilities there along Bachman Road, around a little more than 600 feet, and all the facilities would be overhead. And so it does go across county commission property, and so we would need the permission of the commission to do so.
Does it go across any private property?
No, there's just the one property, your property in between the American Water property and where we're presently setting. So no other private properties are being crossed.
Do we have anybody else here who wants to speak on that matter? In that case, I'm going to move we approve the easement.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Color stickies on this one, so we would know. He did not mind.
I like this. Take down the sign.
I know. she makes sure that we all sign. We have several fail safes.
Holy moly.
Is that going to be John's color and?
Well, I don't want my color to be pink and.
I'll take pink.
Okay,
I'll take
well,
pink.
great. And now next time you and I will sign in the room.
Yes.
Let's see, 3.
What's the, we want to do the record rotation?
Yeah, Kevin's here. About the.
Come on up, Kevin.
Come on, Kevin.
I was like, which one? I saw Kevin Wilson in a suit.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Before you, Commissioner, you should have a request for record rotation for Logan's Towing out of north of the river. We have lost the towing service on that side of the river. Chad's record service has closed down. Leaving us one service down on that side of the river to provide adequate service for that area. Logan does meet all requirements set forth in our record rotation policy. The only recommendation that I have, as we stated in the previous record rotation meetings, is that we just make sure that everything is compliant with site inspection, that has a storage facility to make sure everything is compliant with the regulations of the state requirements for inside storage, to have inside storage or fencing with it being a secure area. He has all his license in there, his drivers are listed, his insurance policies listed, other than site inspection. Everything is good to go. So do you do that, or? It has to come from the commission. If you wish to do a site inspection, the commission just has to go through the site inspection.
So what you're asking us to do right now is to approve or request a site inspection.
I'm asking the commission to approve it based upon the site inspection that he meets all
So
requirements.
to approve addition to the list,
Yes, ma'am.
contingent upon his
That's correct, yeah.
passing the inspection.
Yes.
Okay, I move that we do approve the addition of Logan.
Okay, I'd like to also add that not only let's do Logan's Towing, but it's time that we go and visit all the records.
Okay.
Making sure that they have their name imprinted on their doors, not using magnets going from truck to truck to truck. And additionally, just make up a check sheet, a checklist that you have. And then bring that back into the commission. Can you have that done by December 7th?
We will have an inspection done by December.
Okay, wait, let's get the first motion done. And does anybody second the motion?
Second.
Do that, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Why do they have to have their names imprinted on the vehicles?
So.
Oh, did you want to speak on that? Okay,
I just like to move the title.
What's that?
His address.
Well, I have
A different address, huh?
1760 Hollier Road.
That's
Yeah,
your-
that's the address.
That's the address.
That's all road, I'm
Okay.
okay with.
Yeah.
Oh, business address is 20646 Midland Trail, Ansted.
Yeah, we have an agreement in place. Right now, we'll do a letter that precludes him from putting his direct vehicle on his block on US 60. Yeah, that application was turned in before we discussed the whole direct vehicle. Well, yeah, I went back and changed it to 1750 over the road. So
Okay.
It cannot be in the county.
so
He
with
can
that
have his-
provision then,
his car business there, but not his, he cannot store any wrecked vehicle whatsoever.
and so you're saying that you turned this in before that now you'll be storing. the
Yeah, everything's
vehicles.
gonna be at my farm on 1750 Harbor Road.
On Harbor Road. So there's no objection with that provision.
Not under, currently what he's operating under.
Let's have a do-over on the motion. I move that we approve and request the inspection contingent upon passing, and also with the provision that the vehicles be stored only at the Harbor Road address.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, I will also make a motion that all record companies be visited and the checklist be used making sure that everything's following all state regulations. State regulations is on the door.
So the DOT.
It's not
On the agenda. It's on the agenda.
Oh,
I think it has to be on the agenda.
okay. Well, all record companies be ready. We're gonna be checking everything.
Well, I think that we need
December.
to do that anyway. Is that something we would need to have on the agenda? I mean, I feel like you need to have a process where you regularly inspect.
It's yearly, so it would take place at the first of the year.
Okay, well, if that's already the way it is, then I don't think we need to do that.
Yeah, first of the year.
To happen, and the first of the year is 6 weeks away.
Let's just make sure we do that.
Yeah, we review all every year. We review everything, make sure their driver's policy, the insurance, everything is up to date in their file. So at that time, we can do the site inspection as well.
And then
Okay.
bring the site inspections into the commission, please.
Can you write us a letter and let us know who's in compliance with who
Absolutely.
isn't
Yes, sir.
by the end of January?
Ma'am.
Okay. That works for everybody?
For me.
Done. That works for you?
Cool, as long as we get it done.
All right, sweet. Michelle, you ready on the elections position?
Sure. Been doing it.
So basically, as I've been in the office now going on 2 years, I've noticed a need to have at least a part-time person in the elections office in addition to the full-time person. There were budget cuts several years ago and they lost a full-time position in that office with the understanding that what we call the front office, the records office, could pick up the slack. And that does not happen based on the amount of business that we do in that office and the work that they have to do. And so either that work suffers to get election stuff fixed, or election stuff suffers because there's only one person and what I can do to help. So I would like to add a part-time position to that office. I think that I haven't seen the numbers because we just finished the checks for this election for the poll workers. I think what was budgeted in my elections budget for salary would cover that position for the rest of the fiscal year. And then we could add that position to my regular salary budget in February when you guys do budget discussions.
So if we add it, does that mean an increase in your budget, or does it mean?
For next year, yes. For this year, I think my current elections budget, Ruth might be able to tell me better, because like I said, I haven't been able to see those numbers because.
Well, we won't have them until after we close November.
Right. But I mean, we budgeted for 235 poll workers and we only had 180.
We also didn't have as many canvas workers.
Right. We budgeted for, I think, 20 of those or so.
Is that the amount of money set aside every year for each election?
Not leave it the same every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. I mean, that's up to you which budget it comes from. I just know, like, I mean, Sarah's budget comes from the regular salary line item, even though her work is strictly in the elections office. So,
Close November.
Can we postpone this until you guys give some more specifics on the numbers?
Yeah.
So that's all right. You think you'll be able to have that by December 7th, or do you want to
The
wait?
month won't be closed until, they don't have to give us the financials until 12/15. So
Okay,
That'll be the one after.
when is the meeting after that? Do you know? Is that?
we don't have one unless you need one.
Oh,
January.
that's right. I think that.
Yeah, we said January.
Changed it.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and, I move to postpone it to the pending January 4th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Um,
We could go ahead and, since Teresa is here.
Okay,
let her do those.
And they want to break it.
okay. Hey, Teresa, morning.
Thank you all. You all have this, I can't.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
Well, I do.
I don't want to tell you the problem today, but it's a good problem to have, I suppose.
This is good, for my first position, I really did not have enough information on hand to be able to do projections with. This basically is just some trend lines, it's not, it's on a calendar basis, but it's what I have to work with, so. We're taking quite the money on drug testing, that's average 25 a month on that, just reimbursements from DHR. So between that and the increase in the fee collections and things that we have, if you all can see, the monthly collections plus the monthly grant, it's not costing us a lot to operate. My issue is with the grant application coming up, we need to show, or I need to be able to show progress and growth. And because I'm going to ask for a significant amount of this time, we need a daily smaller transport vehicle. So we're like using a 16 passenger van to transport one person to a fitness center. We need, there's several other improvements we need. And there's also as well, the major one as part of our strategic plan is somewhere in the near future to have a home confinement and GPS monitoring officer, someone dedicated just to that, because we can give money for the equipment and software and to monitor all that, but we don't always get to designate as much time to it as we would like. So instead of just using it when we need to, it could just be much more effective tool, an intelligence tool. If we give them course formation, I mean, if we just have somebody to dedicate time. So that's in the long run. But for right now, I'm trying to, what I'm asking you all today is to basically tell me if we can make staffing changes, one position change that would be brought into the more of a, well, deputy director, basically. I'm not sure what the title would be, but you would call it here, but someone else in a leadership position. Say for instance, if I were not there for some reason, if I wasn't in the building, or if one of the other was on vacation, there's always somebody in the league to take on that role. And in light of the growth that we've had, we've got a lot more participants in the building. We're averaging 20 people in the building a day now, whereas in January we were averaging 8 to 10. So it's doubled, and it's a lot of guys on 8 hours a day, much less, when they're home in the evening. What I need is to make these program changes. If you notice the second page here, this is the current staffing with a total of 6. One of those is a vacant part-time driver. If we do away with that vacant part-time driver and we make Mr. Sorrell a full-time driver with benefits, that would eliminate the need for that second part-time driver. So that money would be could be allocated to something else. Remaining at 6, what I would like to do with that would give myself and Ms. Kincaid and then 2 case managers, program assistants, the full-time driver who is reliable and from what I can tell, the best driver in DRC history. Right there, anyway.
That is true.
Give him a gold ribbon. He works some really kind of all hours and shift and is dedicated.
Pardon me. Not to interrupt the meeting. We can't hear back.
Maybe near that microphone.
Okay, is that better? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I apologize.
You're fine.
Yeah, that microphone doesn't.
It's just good.
It doesn't. Oh, so it doesn't do anything?
So maybe
Just
it's
off the-
by the door.
So far, she's suggesting that she eliminate a vacant driver position with a salary attached to it of $19,968 and reallocate those funds in part to bring her current driver, who has the best driving record in DRC history, full-time. So that's what we've heard so far as that goes. And she's got to make some changes to show growth. She's more than doubled the participants in the DRC program, having restored the judiciary's faith in their monitoring. And further, she is looking at having someone dedicated to proactively monitoring the GPS monitoring rather than reactively when we think somebody's gone astray. So that's usually when it comes up, and and to kind of watch them and see what their patterns are and to make sure they're not trying to pull a fast one before they get caught. Did I miss anything?
That's perfect.
Okay.
So anyways, for, what I'm asking for specifically today is approximately 51,989.97. That's the total number of dollars it would take to make these changes. Adding a case, well, basically adding a second in command, retaining 2 case managers at a higher starting salary, and making the driver full-time with full benefits. And the number is, I estimated that at the highest possible benefits package. It could be lower, but for 51,000.
The second thing I missed is she wants a deputy director for when she's gone.
Right.
Okay, sorry, Teresa.
And besides when I'm going, there are other reasons for that. And in light of recent circumstances, it just adds a little more diversity to the, I think, to the leadership there, as well as the confidence that subordinate staff may be being able to, I don't know, it's just more supportive, I believe.
Is a funding,
Well, just heard, like your DHR, whatever, that money that comes in would support it, and then your grant initially, what was it last year?
109 or
110, and it's 194 this year.
196.
Yeah, 196, so.
I mean,
So she's had increases in grant and in income that would support these changes.
and actually saving the county money in
Yeah.
other areas. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a no-brainer to me. I don't know what the commission think about it.
Have we gone through the community corrections board yet?
Well, we did discuss it, and although there wasn't a forum, we didn't take a vote that day. I think it was looked for as a favorable plan. And we do have some applicants ready for a couple of those positions. Well, for one case manager position, we have vacant now. But I'm assuming it was a favorable plan before, because they did want to know what I was gonna have a new starting pay for the case managers hire to attract, better applicants. That with your all's blessing and approval, then we can proceed with it.
I would say with regard to designating whatever you call Dalton's position or your second in command, that's something the board should probably decide.
Okay.
Because it governs, as far as the budget is concerned, I feel like we could go ahead. What do you think, Anthony, as the head of the board?
I think, I mean, I'd like to see these changes made. We need to get the new case manager hired. I'm still thinking on that.
Yeah, as far as like what his position is gonna be called and stuff, I feel like that's being correct.
I think, yeah, the board should make that decision. But I mean, it's maybe the more important thing with the job is.
You could certainly designate him whenever you're not there, or make sure people know until the board is able to have a quorum.
Well,
Find his position.
I don't, exactly. I mean, I don't plan for that to happen anytime soon, but just, like I said, it's just a very much more supportive structure for new staff that we will have.
Okay, and one thing I know we've talked in the past, and I just had another discussion yesterday with the health department about the ODs and some of our problem areas. And Dr. Stewart told me that Oak Hill and Montgomery have the highest OD rates in the county. Which I think is a cause to revisit your suggestion that we consider opening DRC in the Montgomery area. To kind of help monitor and encourage those who are trying to get straight and stay straight.
Specifically, in addition of, the second case manager, as part of the strategic plan, that's an extra body, and then to get a home environment person, if the grant won't allow that. And for the counties that they have approved that extra money for, it's a substantial amount. So looking at that, and we would have students, both on board, 2 more bodies, so to speak, to help transition, train, if we had the training, but there would be more folks, more hands on deck, if we're allowed the opportunity to grow and to value.
Well, if you could, I don't know, if you have enough time. Well, Well, yeah, and we talked about that, about, we probably are people in Kanawha County, they probably cooperate with us to.
We have it for the cooperative, well, I spoke to, the community corrections grants, committee. They were, well, Marty, he was full on board with that, but he wanted the studies done, and he wants, he obviously wanted us to coordinate with him, you know, and do some studies and get some numbers and some things like that, so they want anybody's before. I reached out, but, you know, have got a lot of response, but I only reached out a couple times, I didn't get on any motion.
Well, we can do a letter to the Kanawha County Commission and ask that they, you know, consider this, that we're considering it, and try to get some data from that side.
That'd be one.
The statute allows multiple counties to go in on one. So
Yeah, I might save them in transportation. Of course, they have public transportation value. To that level, but if you can get some numbers together by budget time, just kind of a dream sheet, maybe a timeline, if we were to do this, now would be the time to do it, because we still haven't made our ARPA investment in the valley, so we're still looking at options about.
It's actually in my meetings.
And there's quite a few participants from UKV in that area that come down to it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So what did we sign in December?
We had an MOU that we did last year.
grant for the home confinement office.
January, the grant for the, yes, the community corrections. That I will
Well,
get.
that's with the whole program.
Yes.
Are you applying for a separate grant for home confinement officer?
No, I'm gonna put it in.
Okay, so, are you moving to,
I'd make a motion to approve 51,989.79 or 97 for the additional for the deputy director and to make so what was his name?
Mr. Sorrell.
Sorrell.
Case manager.
Full-time driver.
our second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa, have you already ran your ads for your case managers?
Yes, we did. We have that, and we closed it, and I have 17 applications to review,
It's good.
and some good candidates as well.
You've done a good job, Anthony, too. Y'all done a good job.
Turn that around. I mean, that's a quick turnaround.
Yeah,
And that jail savings is a solution to that. It's really how that's a team effort and reports, and that's one.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
while you're here, you know, the project we made on the animal shelter.
Oh, where was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And y'all,
Okay.
So we go back, and they did some really good progress with that first one, really good progress.
Okay, you put your in touch with them and that's.
Yes, I went
That's
down
good.
there. Spoken to them. They were very happy.
good.
Thanks, God.
Yeah. Yeah, with the, I think we should send a letter to that.
all right,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
You didn't have to dry, wasn't you? The brown, one
All
or the
right,
other.
let's take a 10-minute break.
Amy?
Now, on solid waste authority, do we have any applicants for, well, we have 3 vacancies on the solid waste authority right now. No applicants?
Not officially. We are gonna have to vote or discuss that. Depending on the state, because right now it's going forward.
Right, and I believe I remember saying a couple of years ago, that I thought we probably shouldn't have county employees on these boards. And it turns out I was right. We've really done it as a matter of necessity, but it turns out the state code is very specific that county employees not serve on the solid waste authority, which leaves us with 3 vacancies. And so I've asked our staff to put it out on social media, you share it on yours. It'd be nice to get some applicants for that, because while I think, and I think others, that we don't need a solid waste authority in Fayette County, we cannot figure for the life of us how to eliminate having a board for the time being. So we don't have a dump anymore, so I think we don't need one. But right now, we have not been able to figure out how to get rid of the solid waste authority because we don't have a dump. So we do have to populate its board. So if anybody knows anybody who's willing to serve, it's going to become pretty active, because we hope to roll out the dilapidated housing program next year and start cleaning the county up. We're going to fund that program. So we've discussed, we hope to fund the program. I know we've all expressed interest in it. So anyway, if you guys can put the word out, but for the time being, we do not have a solid waste authority. Vote to remove. We do.
I would just say to cover.
To vote to, and we have you and Amy on the board. Also deputy. Okay. So I move that we officially remove the county employees Kelly McClintock and Angela Carroll from the solid waste authority, given the fact that we shouldn't have appointed them to start with.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and let's just get the word out to the extent we can, and see if we can get populated. But I want to revisit the question too, and I'm going to contact Anthony, Michael Taylor, about seeing, we need to file something or something to overcome whatever is prohibiting us from eliminating that board, because I still don't feel like
The solid waste.
Yeah. That's with that.
Yeah.
Look into that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All righty, let's go ahead and revisit the budget. I was able to resolve my question of the sheriff. We had approved an emergency meeting purchase of a second road cruiser. Because the place where we bought the first one had an available cruiser. And then that dealer was kind enough to sell it out from under us before we were able to acquire it. Another vehicle that is purposed for patrol became available in the form of a Tahoe instead of an Explorer. The sheriff went ahead and made a command decision. The vehicle costs only $1,200 more, but the outfitting of it is less expensive. So the overall expense to the county is reduced from the original amount we approved. So I'm going to go ahead and move that we approve.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead. No, go ahead and interrupt.
Commissioner. Kevin just brought this to me,
Mhm.
and I was wanting to see if we can add it to the vouchers. I talked to Ruth about it. And Kevin, you want to get up there and talk about it
I
before?
can certainly.
Yeah, please. And the reason behind it.
Okay, let me finish one thing about the cruiser issue before you do that. And I just sensitize everybody, because of this rush that they have to go through anytime they find one available. I mean, it's almost impossible. I feel like, Ruth, if you would work with the sheriff and make some recommendations to us about how we might build into the budget a pre-approval of cruiser purchases or something, so then they don't have to come. So we don't have to do an emergency meeting. I mean, we're trying to work something out with fire service too about when they have emergency purchases, but we want to make sure that,
I mean, we could put some in the budget for the next year, but, I couldn't do anything with that anyway. Because it's law enforcement.
oh, that's right. But I mean, just the idea could come from you about how to do it. And then, Commissioner Louise says it's the.
Hey, I thank y'all, and like I said, I had to make a decision, and it's happened so fast. Yesterday, thank y'all for getting the one in the Indian. The chief sat down one day for 3 days in a row and called everywhere in the United States itself. There's none. And then they pop up and long story short, I mean, busy. This is the in-state, willing, the state bid. There were 75 of them ordered. State police took the majority of them. Charleston PD got 2, and they couldn't pay for it. They wanted to pay in July, and the budget guy said, sorry, it don't work that way. Capital County got one. They called the chief. And I said, we gotta do what we have to do, and I'll deal with it, and that's what we're dealing with today, but I do appreciate y'all. He just, I mean, and I agree with you, Allison, there's a time that, and these cruisers are not gonna get any cheaper, we lucky to get to this price, they're going up anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 just on the Explorers. So it's gonna be crazy, but.
And Chief Purdue said that the Explorers are going to become more expensive even than the Tahoes, which with regard to patrol are actually superior vehicles. So if you guys can make some recommendations to Ruth, so she can make some recommendations to us about how we can front load that so you don't have to go through this again. I mean, we're happy to entertain them, sure. And so Kevin, come on down.
It's all good.
Yeah, I just wanted to explain what's going on.
Go ahead.
Madam President, myself and Commissioner Berman, a couple of years ago, got together and we went through our fleets. And we got to the conclusion that we need to order anywhere between 6 to 8 a year. And the reason is because one thing is the maintenance. Second of all is the turnaround and the number of deputies we have. And it's going to be hard to fluctuate our cost every year because it keeps going up. And we tried to lease thing it in. But you're looking between, what was it, John, 6 to 10 a year?
Yeah.
And rotating it, 1 year get 6, next year get 10.
Yeah.
And I think we worked the math out, with our maintenance would almost be cut in half because we're in one.
You're talking about 750,000 a year.
Yeah.
In rotation? Yeah. 750,000 a year. I just had to bring that figure up real quick so everybody understood what you're talking about.
I mean,
Yeah.
Everything with the mileage on them and
Yeah.
stuff like it. You know.
No, we agree. I mean, I just want everybody to know when you're talking about that much, you're talking about at least $750,000.
plus that would give us an opportunity to sell a vehicle with less than over 100,000 miles on it.
We got a deal to get half the money back.
Yeah. So Rod, I think we need to revisit that again this spring. If you can get that information, just call me and then we'll get together.
And there's absolutely no resistance to getting you guys what you need. It's just the reality of the budget.
We understand that.
All right. Anything else on the cruiser stitch?
Are you sure?
One place.
All right, come on, Kevin.
All right, good morning. Once again, talked to Commissioner Luis earlier, and I brought this to the attention. Every year we have Gruber Power, which is our critical power source, to do inspection on our battery backup to our building. Last year, our batteries passed inspection. There's 40 batteries in our UPS system. They passed the inspection and was holding charge as they should. We got our yearly inspection on Tuesday, and I got the email late yesterday afternoon. And our batteries is at end of life, and it is now a critical matter that these batteries get replaced. These batteries hold our center for 2 hours in the event of we lose power and our generator does not fire. If the generator fires, we'll go on generator power. But if these batteries go down and the generator does not fire, we have lost all power and everything to our building. So these batteries are roughly $17,000 to replace 40 of them. To be installed to get our system back up 100%. And they usually last between 5 to 6 years before they have to be replaced. This is on the 6th year that these batteries was replaced. So this is year number 6. And according to the email that Brugger has sent, this is now become an urgent matter, and they would like to see it get replaced as soon as possible before we go into critical failure.
Looks like it's slightly over the maximum amount Ruth could approve,
Yes.
$17,806. Well, I'm glad it came in yesterday before we met today. Probably not gonna have enough.
And that's why I brought it immediately today and showed Commissioner Luis.
You take me on the battery.
Okay. Anybody have anything else to add? vouchers and invoices in general or about this? Typically, okay, in that case, I move we approve vouchers and invoices.
Second.
All those in favor, and include this, all those in favor?
Aye.
So do you, as part of the payroll vouchers and invoices, I guess cameras would be included in that.
Should be.
Yeah.
Well, and they're, no, never mind, they're like a 15 checks, it's fine. You're right,
We're on track. So we are about to the 911 center discussion. You ready to
Well,
roll?
I'm just gonna, I typed in some things, I was wanting Amy to pull some stuff up. We pull up the,
Let me get logged into
Okay.
this.
she's pulling up my
Your presentation.
spreadsheets.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Here. I'm not gonna do one different thing. That's why I didn't want to do it earlier. Which one do you want first, the revenue or the schedule?
Do the schedule first.
I don't know, they can-
There you go.
You see everything that you want to see?
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing they got married.
I'm waiting on a second.
You're behind.
He's,
You ready?
Yeah, well, you are.
Okay, sorry, I was just.
That's okay. That's no big deal. All right, what I've done is, put together a couple spreadsheets on the cost of, staffing and the equipment needed, and some other things, so everybody understands how the 911 center operates and the cost of the operation. And I'm gonna do I got a little paragraph here I'm gonna read, then I'll go over this stuff. An overview, I visited 911 centers and how they operate compared to our 911 center to see the differences. What I've found is multiple issues across the board. That's not any one person, department, or organization's fault. I believe the issues are unwillingness to cooperate and understand, adapt and adopt change, working to unify, training issues, along with updating data and equipment, and the correct funding. So before I get started, I want everybody to understand I'm not picking on any one person, department, or organization. Okay? Especially the 911 staff. Let's see, on the first part, the 911 center needs, let me see, hold on, I'm off there. On the cost, no, hold on. Okay, here it is. I made an example schedule that would help everyone better understand the staffing needed for the operation of the 911 center more efficiently, and what I would like to see the 911 center start moving toward in staffing scheduling for the next budget year. I used the 911 center information to make the example schedule and show the staff cost to operate the 911 center, make it efficient. Presently, the administration staff only works Monday through Friday. I would like to see the director, deputy director, and emergency manager rotate working weekends. And I think we talked about that. Presently, right now, all the administrative staff work Monday through Friday. And I disagree with that. I think that some administrative staff should work on weekends. And if you look at that, I've got a director, deputy director, emergency manager, and the GIS coordinator. Listed above. I've also put the total salaries in and what the staff cost is, so everybody understands what this 911 center costs to operate. You're not going to believe what it costs to operate correctly. Let's see. I would like to see the 911 center have a dispatch training coordinator that would be responsible for dispatch scheduling, training, and payroll that would rotate shifts as needed and to evaluate dispatch performances. And I think the staff, I've been with the admin staff, and we talked about that. And that is actually the number 8 now, number 8, and number 1. 8 on that list. Then what I got is I would like the 911 center. I don't know how many presently supervisors you have out there. But on my scheduling, how many is that? 4. Okay. I've got 5 plus the training coordinator. I would like the 911 center to maintain 5 dispatch supervisors to ensure coverage for training, sick leave, vacation time, and maintaining 0 overtime. One of the problems with the 911 center is that we have way too much overtime. It needs the staff to be able to keep overtime down. Then I have scroll down to a call dispatch trainer. I would like to see 911 staff purchase the equipment and set up a call center dispatching area for training and taking non-emergency calls and directing calls to the dispatchers. All the other 911 centers I visited had a call center. I didn't know whether any of y'all knew that. We have, I'm not saying they have, but the call center has been abandoned.
What does that mean?
Well, you want to explain it? I mean, I can explain it, but you want
Are you talking about
the fifth position. In other words, when calls come in, they take the call and they direct the call where it needs to be in the dispatch room. And if it's a non-emergency call, instead of holding up the dispatcher from taking, responding to the serious emergencies, it alleviates that call from the actual dispatch.
So it's like a triage for dispatch, is
Yeah,
that,
because bigger centers, they have call takers and then they have dispatchers.
okay,
And
so
our
like if we have a
dispatchers
storm
do
and a bunch of trees down, like we have all the time, they can, rather than tie up the dispatchers with the tree down calls, we can get those dispatched otherwise, okay.
And it originally it started out there. There was a position out there. It was used for a train, and what I thought it was used for a training area and a call center to take the calls and then dispatch them somewhere else. And alleviate the stress off the 911 center, the actual dispatchers taking emergency calls.
So is that in that, are you, do you
It's
just,
that room off of dispatch.
so back in dispatch, not in the
Right.
multi-call phone room that we use for phone?
I want to change it to the glass windows. It was in a totally different area.
Like kind of behind.
Yeah, but what I want to do is put it where the glassy area is, so it does have access to actual dispatchers if needed. And a training would be a training area and a area for the training coordinate dispatch coordinator to operate out of. And it's never been utilized. I think that might be some of the issues. Of course, the funding, all this is, I'm gonna get to the funding. The funding, all this, in order to have the correct operations, you have to have the correct funding for employees and everything. You have to. You don't have the correct funding, you don't have the training, it doesn't happen.
So do you anticipate the call center and the training coordinator to share an office?
Well,
Share space?
basically,
Yeah,
she will
it's a
be,
separate office.
Okay,
So you still have the 4
yeah,
consoles, and that would be a fifth one.
okay, but the person doing the training would share an office with whoever is triaging calls?
No, it'd be the same person.
Oh, it'd be the same person.
well, no, it would be a different person. Maybe we're not understanding each other. There would be somebody in there taking calls, but then she would oversee the training of that person. That person will eventually go to be a dispatcher. That's the first step in the training.
All right, well, we can worry about this since we're later.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, this, I'm just
trying to
saying,
reason out.
yeah, I know, and this is why at the end, I'm gonna talk about the commissioners need to be involved in this. I think all three of us, I've been out there, and I think y'all's come out there a couple of times, but I think we need to have monthly meetings with the staff, the admin staff, the fire, police, the sheriff. I think we need to have a monthly meeting out there and reorganize the whole place. It's not no one person's fault. There's multiple things. That's what I'm trying to say. There's multiple things. And we can come up with a solution to all of them, but we have to be involved in this. Okay, I guess that's all on the spreadsheet. But what I did, if you look down there, I actually took, if you look at, I went through, I pre-made a schedule. And when I made this schedule, I took the call data for every hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I calculated it, and where the calls are coming in, the most of the calls come in, I put the help in the right places. Some places there'll only be 3, some places there'll be 5. And I put the hours up there, the amount of pay, and I even put in the taxes. I even put in the insurance, just so everybody gets a general idea of what 26, I think it's 26 people working out there cost if you do it correctly a year. $1.4 million, $1.5 million just in labor. Just in labor. not counting the equipment. If you want to go to the other spreadsheet, almost 1.5, yeah. And believe me, there's other 911 centers that pay a hell of a lot more than what I've got up there. Yeah, it's a little, yeah, well, I don't know about too big. I don't think anybody can read that. I hope they can.
I can zoom it in.
Okay, go to the left first, because I'm gonna start off at the top left. On equipment updates, what I've done is I've asked Kevin, Philip, and Tanja put together for me all the equipment that's needed or what we thought that was needed. And we had a meeting 2 weeks ago or a month with Flex in here and talked to them. The equipment that we're presently purchasing, the equipment that's needed, the tire antennas that's going to be needed updated, to give everybody a general idea of what it costs to operate or purchase equipment, what equipment's needed for this 911 center and what the cost is. I mean, that's just, we're in the process of purchasing 4 new dispatch centers. And that's 51,000 a year. You'll actually see that that's done on 6 years. You'll see that down where I got the cost to operate. The new recorder, 142,000. And then the dispatch training area that we're talking about, to implement that or put that equipment there, it's about $144,000. If anybody wants to ask any questions on this equipment, Kevin or Philip, or Tanja can answer any questions, because I'm not technically have much information on that. They do.
Okay, I have a question. The new dispatch call training console and area, is that a necessity or a want?
I think it's a necessity, especially, just like the brush fire, for instance.
We need a blow over. And that equipment, they need an actual dispatch.
I mean, they'll be able to do everything from that station.
We got radio, everything will be plugging.
Is there any other 911 center does not have a call dispatcher? I'm just curious. The ones I went to, they all have a.
But some are small.
So you take Monroe County, Clay County is dispatch call center, all, they have like 2 dispatchers on. Wyoming County has between 3 to 4, depending on their shifts. They do everything, call taking, dispatching, the whole 9 yards.
Well, let's look at comparable counties. What about Wyoming, McDowell?
Well, that's one you just said.
McDowell has 3 to 4, their call takers and
Wyoming
dispatchers.
sometimes only have 2.
Wyoming County is anywhere between 2 to 3, sometimes 4, depending on what they're doing, like if they have the Trail Festival, if they have Time Day, whatever it's called, Dogwood, whatever the festival's already on there, it depends on what they do. We work hand in hand with those guys. Sometimes they run 2, sometimes they run 4, up to 4.
Well, it depends on the calls. The call volume determines all this crap. I mean, it really does. If you compared actually their call volume to our call volume.
Our call volume is twice, 3 times compared to what theirs are.
Well, and I think what Tanya meant about the brush fires, and I know this happened with the last big storm we had. A lot of calls come in. I already mentioned the downed trees, but we already knew there was a brush fire and our fire service was out there fighting it. But everybody who crossed the bridge or saw it would call anew, and let us know just in case we didn't. So while our dispatchers are trying to work with the incident commander and trying to get people where they needed to be, we had more calls coming in just to tell us what we already knew. So that's where something like that would come in handy, where our dispatchers are actually trying to help Mr. Cruikshank get a, one engine to another location or something like that, or more engines deployed from somewhere else in the county. Instead, they had to say, to somebody from Iowa crossing the bridge that, okay, yeah, we know there's a fire. So
I think it's a bust. this is the reason I say that. If we have an active shooter scene, we want one dispatcher designated to us. And we've talked about this in the past several months, in the training we've had, is if my closest unit, he's got that ready. All the other responding units, instead of walking over top of him, can go to our secondary channel, which that console will be turned on to, feeding us information to the primary yelling thing. Vice versa, fire station, you got a major fire incident. Say you got always man or something like that. Several apparatuses, firemen and stuff around them, they can open that console up just for them on a certain channel. Leave everything else open.
It's like the
No more code red, no more code green. It's primarily for that scene.
So not only a triage, but use it also as a command specific,
Yeah.
incident specific position. But it,
Because your training coordinator and everything works out of that room that has that one.
And it frees up the other three dispatchers to keep on EMS law and fire throughout the county while that incident is going through it. Single dispatch.
so we would have multiple purposes. It could triage, it could, depending on what the need is, incident response. All right. John, do you have any more questions?
Not on that one. I will as we go on.
Go move over to the, revenue, 911 revenue. One more. Maybe one more. There we go. So what I did is I asked Ruth and Kevin, we all put this together on the total revenue that the 911 center, all the sources of revenue that it gets each year. We took 2020, 21, 22, and got the expenses. And you see that it was over of 168, negative 224. So basically what I wanted that for is to show how much revenue total comes in on an average year. What I did is I actually added the three revenue streams for 3 years up, divided by 3. And you'll see on the down on the on another part that I have that how much the average was for 3 years. So if you want to go back all the way to the left. Well, yeah, go to cost to operate. Okay, well, yeah, too far. Now, what I did is Kevin and Philip and all of us put this, well, I didn't put it together, they put it together for me, I just put it in a spreadsheet. All the fees and maintenance, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's actually 13, 14, 15, and 16 are actually all fees that the 911 center pays on a yearly basis. And that's something you cannot do away with. You have to have them fees. What it is, the utilities, I took 3 years utilities and averaged them and divided by 3, averaging about $99,000 a year just for utilities. That's phone, everything. Now there's a development bond. There's a development bond payment of $94,000 a year. All this is what it costs this center to operate the building this setting. And I got to put the payment in there for the 4 new dispatch centers. It's $51,000 a year. And then I got the labor on there at 1.4, just about 1.5 million from the spreadsheet. To operate this 911 center, you look at the cost of $1.9 million just to set and operate at the correct labor and what the building cost and utility cost, the equipment cost and the fees, $1.9 million. What I did after that is I put down the what I estimate training, because presently we have not been training correctly, and nothing against the staff of 911 center. We've actually got a list of all the training that needs to be. We're going to implement more training than what's recommended. And that's something that needs to be. And not only the administration staff, but the supervisors and even the people that work there, we're talking about training these people, and this stuff is not cheap. If I should have had that and sent that information. here. It's not cheap to train these people.
I've got that email.
If you want to put it up there, just so we can get it and send it to them, and put it up, or just see what that costs to train everybody. And you got the classes, on the, flex classes too?
I don't
Yeah.
have to talk about all of that.
Well, it's, yeah, per person, per year. Per year. So that's, and that hasn't been done. We haven't done the correct training. That's some of the issues out there too. So then what I put into this figure, I put $150,000 for updating equipment as needed, not only for the 911 center. I put this figure in here. So the 911 center, the sheriff's department, fire department, OTL PD, Federal PD, all the PDs can get in. And the 911 center will have funds for grants to be able to purchase radios, to be able to purchase anything else throughout the county. And we can all go in on a grant with all the municipalities and fund some of this needed equipment for OTL, for the PDs, the sheriff department, and the fire departments. And that brings the actual cost to operate the 911 center is $2.1 million. If it's operated correctly, in my opinion. Now, if I took the 3-year average that we've got in the last 3 years is about $1.6 million in revenue. That gives us a negative balance of $500,000. What I did scrolling down. We've done a little researching, and presently the 911 business landline, what I wanted to do, currently the 911 business landline costs is $4.50 per line. Residential is $4.50 per line. I'm not talking about raising residential. But what I would like to do is raise the business landline from $4.50 to $9.50. I'm a business owner, but I don't mind paying $9.50 for a business line for the 911 center. So that gives that over a year's period of time gives an increase of $333,000. That still leaves a $174,000 needed to operate the 911 center correctly. And what I was going to recommend to the commission is the commission set aside $50,000 to $100,000 for next year's budget for the 911 center. And we can talk about it before the budget's in. That's why I'm presenting this now. For the 911 center, and then ask the municipalities or anybody else that wants to contribute the opposite amount to fund the 911 center. That 911 center supports everybody. Philip goes and works on everybody's radios. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know if he doesn't do OTLs. Okay, well.
We can't get him in the office building, we called several times. We called with him. That's why we deal with the Kenwood Internet.
Okay.
It's good radio.
They came in and reprogrammed our radios for the new sirens.
Who did?
Kenwood.
Who did? Okay. Okay, well, I thought that's okay. Okay.
That's because we're not getting a message. I have one question.
Yeah.
I don't see any taxes for cell phones.
Oh, Ruth, you want to pull that up?
It's on there.
Yeah, okay, scroll back up
I
there.
can't pull it up.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Go back up there.
It's public service.
Public
Yeah,
service.
They establish. State.
Because I have big cell phones. I don't know.
That's actually under the state legislative order, $3 and.
Go back up, keep them up.
Some
Keep
months.
keep going, keep going. There you go, now, yeah, go over to the left. So you can see what it says, public services.
Yeah, that's.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, right here.
I,
Madam President, I think Mr. Williams said that they want to have a question.
I didn't believe you for the record.
Could these be made available in hard copy?
What's that?
At the end of the meeting, these figures numbers be made available in hard copy?
Well, yeah, in fact, I'm gonna post it on my website.
Not a hard copy.
Tell me who wants a copy and I'll get Robert to make copies. Two over there.
Four.
Three.
The other thing is just.
five, six.
It's definitely something.
Okay, I have,
Could centers do by counties or region or sectional? I mean, does it have to be each county have a center?
I mean,
I'm just asking for.
I think they may move that direction. I think they're gonna move that direction eventually.
There are some counties.
Already wanted.
In fact, Nicholas County, I talked to a gentleman in Nicholas County at one time because they didn't, I think, they don't, do they have a 911 center out?
They're actually getting ready to build a new one.
It was
Okay.
played.
They did not. have
They
one.
did not, okay. I knew there was one of them that I talked to that didn't, and I think I talked to one of the commissioners or something about.
But
This is when I was
under
first elected.
under the legislative order, any county who receives 911 calls is responsible to have a call taking center with emergency dispatchers.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think Nicholas County falls under Homeland Security, due to the fact they just have sprayed and smell.
They don't dispatch training, I think that's the regulation.
But they be calling Homeland.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, well, I know Oak Hill, talked about doing their own dispatch center, is what they talked about.
I know, bringing it up like just.
You did that.
well, first, I want to make a statement. This is a county issue. It's not a municipality issue. The funding needs to come from the county somehow, some way, somewhere. And the one piece of equipment that I think is needed more than anything else is the recording system for the rack. Because our current recording system is about ready to die and it needs to be upgraded.
And we'll make a motion on that today, John.
Okay.
I've got it on my list to make motions.
Clarification on this, where it says dispatch calls, that's a total.
Oh, yeah, let's go talk about that.
That's total for 3 years, not 1 year.
No, that's 1 year.
Now,
You talk about we're at
I can look at the fire department, tell that.
37,000.
Yeah, if you look at the individual fire departments, that's 3 years away.
That's
Dispatch,
30 calls a week. Tim, do you guys do 30 calls a week?
30 calls a month.
Okay,
Y'all only do 30 calls a month? What is that? Hold on.
it comes up to 4.3 calls per day.
They only got 4 calls a day?
There can be days that.
Hold on,
Multiple
hold on.
days and not even receive a call.
Oh, that's a whole year.
That looks like more like a year.
That's 3 years. That's 3 years.
No, that's Bill,
I had 3 weeks ago.
the total number is 37,000 at the bottom.
Is that a dispatch call?
Dispatch call. In other words, I think Mr. Fridley just made a presentation one year and said we do 11,243 calls in 1 year compared to everybody else. Do you remember that presentation?
I don't know about them, but I know a year for the sheriff's department, that's about right, but numbers go up.
Believe it or not, over the last 5 years, I looked at them,
They're going
and you can ask Phil, if we all looked at them. They're relatively the same per day, per hour, per shift. They're relatively the same. It was easy for me to make a schedule off of them because I took an average of 5 years.
Last year, Oak Hill Fire Department had 369 calls.
Is it fire calls?
Fire.
Okay, well,
But you're showing 15.
I'm showing total calls. There's total dispatch calls.
This is total dispatch calls.
Well, I mean,
For 1 year.
well, I
When
went
we report to the state.
fire calls.
Yes, sir. Fire calls.
Well,
That's total. That's dispatch.
if we count fire calls, there's some of them that only had like 1 a month, maybe 1 every three
I'm
months.
talking about before dispatch for NBA, fire calls, water rescue, language. Total calls for last year, $369. I don't know where this number.
Well, I mean, I've got the documents. I mean, unless Philip gave me the wrong information, this is where I got it from the 911 center. It didn't come from my tablet.
It could even be if your agency was some anyway involved or all you did you got.
What if you're called in a mutual aid? What if you're called in a mutual aid?
It doesn't matter. Our number, when we say 369, that makes it every call that we roll out of the station. Another fire department doesn't need to wait with them. That department and that department.
Yeah, so it's still gonna create a call, so.
Great answer, but I know that bill's probably was about 300, so I'm looking at that and saying it's 3 years worth of cost.
Yeah, that wasn't 3 year, wasn't it?
No, he done it
I thought he
separate.
did 1, 3, and 5.
That's actually 2019.
And there's no way that Mount Hope does 55 calls
I
a
mean,
month.
believe it or not, we looked at that and I thought,
Out there was probably including.
Yeah, but still yet, not 55 a month.
I mean, I thought it was extreme too, but I actually took the figures off the data. I got the data from the 911 center.
Well, but people, I mean, you just have to figure out what informed the data he got and what informs the data you got, because it sounds like there is a discrepancy, but that doesn't mean that what he got wasn't off of our records. We just have to figure out.
Yeah, believe me, I put this up there for you, anybody to criticize, because I know everybody was going to criticize about it.
just want to know what it reflects.
Well, I mean, that, believe it or not, I mean, I should have brought the documents in here. I brought them in here the other day that we had a meeting back there, and I showed y'all this, but I mean, I showed it the route, but I mean, that's where I got the information.
Can I give you some information that I have?
Yeah.
On Oak Hill Fire Department active. It's MVAs, fire calls, water rescues, angle rescues, every time we roll out of the station. 2018, we actually ran 356 calls. 2019, we ran 376 calls. 2020, we ran 388 calls. 2021, we ran 369.
So it's all around 350 calls.
Yeah, so I don't know. This number.
Yeah, the fire looks.
2019.
All looks accurate.
Yeah. It does, I mean, I'm having my guy pull it up right now, because I think it does, I mean.
That's 2019.
2019, the president.
Or no, wait.
It's all of 2019.
Like,
I mean, Mike gave the presentation. The reason I used 2019 specifically is because Mr. Fridley, Sheriff Fridley gave the presentation in here that how many calls that he takes a year. Because I went through 2019, well, 20, I don't know how many years, but I done 5 years. And I looked at 5 years.
Yeah.
That's,
How long would it take him to find that out, Mike?
On mine,
Yeah.
if he's in office, I don't know where.
Oh. So is that,
what, a year?
Okay, well, we can revisit this
Yeah, we-
another time.
because lately I'd like to know myself if I'm wrong, if the information I got was wrong.
The law looks accurate.
The law is good, the fires are.
There's an easy way to fix the firearms, because we have to go out of.
Well, I mean, I'm not taking, I don't want to take, I want to take the actual calls that come in for that area. Not just a fire or not just a accident.
Or what
the
you
actual
respond to
call,
versus what you've been requested to respond to.
Whether you dispatch to it or not, is that what you're saying? Whether you dispatch to it or not, you don't have to.
But we have to do it on every single call we're dispatched.
Okay. So you told me the other day that you do a report, and these guys do a report from the 911 center. Who do they get that from?
I think we just film.
I mean, do they get it from the 911 center or do they do it themselves?
Well, what they get from, Spillman, I guess, is just the CAD that shows the units and times. And that. The day, the time each unit was dispatched, when they arrived on scene, all that, and the information about the initial caller, what it was,
Or what they were told it was. Most departments have access to the CAD where they log in and get their call sheet for their actual department that has their dispatch time, the response time, the on-scene time. That gives them their information to do their improved reports, which is the report that chiefs are talking about that they have to fill in the city state.
I thought they got something from Tanya too.
Some of them do,
Not yet.
that don't have access to the Spillman system at their station. They call in and get their reports, which then their monthly reports, quarterly reports, however they request them, it's printed off and sent to them so they can do their reports.
Well, believe me, fellas, I would rather this in the end to be less calls than more. I've got a reason for it, but I would rather be less than more.
we're just trying to create accuracy.
Oh, no, I know, and I'm happy. I hope there is an issue that I got the wrong information.
What Steve said, that firewall, that appears to be 3 year number. We have a question, say, from the manager's office, read out of all the answers for any specific.
Well, I'd like Philip to go back and try to figure out where.
That's 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, we can bring them again, because that is accurate. But like I said, I thought Philip printed some, 135.
Well, and he's separate. I thought they was all separated. Each year was separated when I thought.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you might maybe. Because the law was accurate for a year, and that fire was like the 3 year notice.
Okay, all right.
If I can remember.
Well,
Okay,
I will change it.
okay. Can we keep going?
Yes, we keep going. I just want to make sure we got everybody out of there. Well, basically, that's what I want to do. I just wanted everybody to understand whether the figures on the other figures are right, I bet. I'm not even talking about the law. I'm talking about the operating center. And what I consider to operate correctly. Now, I mean, does anybody else have any suggestions on how to maybe manage the center? Employees? How many employees they should have? Anybody have any suggestions on how to cut the labor? Maybe pay them less than what I'm suggesting?
I've seen in the past, the salary, not the dispatchers themselves, but the upper level salary people, we work 24/7. We were on call all the time, no overtime.
And you see, I don't have a fire coordinator in that figure.
Right.
I think fire led should pay for that anyway, all that.
They did.
Okay, well, I didn't have,
And fire levy spending part of, other salaries in there too.
which one are they paying for?
Part bills. And,
Becky.
Becky.
Well, Becky, I really don't consider, and I'm not saying it to be mean, I just don't, as far as 911 staff to operate the 911 center, I think that's more or less for the fire court.
That's everything. I mean, they did try to use her for 911. That's all.
It's pretty short lived.
Yeah,
And I don't think it actually happened like we anticipated it would happen. I think she pretty much stuck in the fire.
The revenue stream.
yes. Go back to the top.
Does any of the municipalities pay anything to the 911 center?
No.
So they use it for free?
It's
But
a,
you mentioned, raising the business phone line. The businesses are already paying being a factor in that municipality. If they're not a
you not make a revenue stream for the B&O taxes?
We don't, that, this county doesn't have anything to do with being a tax.
No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, can you request for them to use the 911 center? They have to pay a fee.
Well,
and a cost.
I talked to a municipality. I ain't gonna tell you who I talked to the other day, and the first thing come out that they said was that fund should come from the fire.
Well,
Fire level pays your rent.
I mean, I'm just telling you what.
You're not paying rent anymore.
Took it out.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, there's a lot of changes being made, but I don't think that some of the municipalities do not have the funding. And the ones that do, what I was gonna say here eventually is I would like the commission to send a letter asking the municipalities if they would come up with it, if they would partner with us, because the 911 center does support the whole county.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you what the answer is gonna be.
well,
Everybody in the
my-
county already.
my only thing is, you know, we've already, I mean, at the business center, we're already paying B&O tax. We're paying, now everybody's paying 1% because of this home rule. So now that's another.
But they don't have to. Municipalities doesn't have to, they didn't have to do that.
They didn't have, no, they didn't have to, but it is being charged, and now they're talking about another charge
Yeah.
on phone lines. So it makes it that much harder.
No, I agree with you. I'm gonna be paying it too.
But what I'm saying is if you're not made the municipality a little bit more responsible for something they're using.
Ask Mr. Perry what if you can make, if the county can make the municipalities more responsible. Listen, I agree with you. I think everybody should get, you know, a certain amount compared to their calls, and that's why I had to call them there for the future. I'll fix that.
Let me ask you this question on that. What about all those that are out of the incorporated area? So now our citizens are paying for those outside.
But they're paying, everybody that's outside is already paying right now.
Well, everybody in my town is paying as well.
I do have a question on revenue. Did you incorporate in your revenue stream the emergency management performance trainings?
It's 50,000 a year.
Is that included in there?
No,
And that doesn't go in that fund.
It pays the salaries.
Right, but his is separate.
Yes.
He's not out of the 911 fund.
and it's just one. Yeah, I got it in there. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I had that event at one time. I had it in there. Yeah,
Okay,
that's 50,000.
John, you have more questions?
No, he said he's gonna make motions here in a minute.
Okay, well, I'll tell you one thing that I'm pretty disappointed right now, and I am frustrated because I feel like rather than people suggest, other than Mr. Willis, suggest ways we might improve things, that everybody was all ready to jump and pounce and criticize it. We're trying to, I think we all have the same goal of, you know, making the 911 center the best thing it can be. But I see a lot of politics going on here, and I don't know where there's a place for that in our public safety. I mean, I would like to see everybody continue to, you know, I mean, we don't, and I still don't fully understand the spreadsheet because I've only seen it once before and it was not for a long time. Like, this is the first time I understand more about it now, having to walk through it than I did before. But those of you who asked for copies, I mean, please examine it and look at it and give us some feedback on what we can do. We do not pay our dispatchers enough, no question. And we need to do that because we need to be able to recruit and retain. The turnover is ridiculous. So our training costs are huge because the turnover is so high. We have to pay them. They work thankless hours. They have a lot of stress on them. So, you know, there are things that we're just going to have to do. And I learned in this process that the CAD system, that it is highly capable. And because we don't have the time to train, we're too busy training new dispatchers. And we don't have the time to train our current dispatchers how to fully maximize, or even our, you know, customer base, our firefighters, our police, how to fully maximize the CAD because it can automate so many things. But right now, we haven't had the time to learn or train people on how to use it to its full capacity. So it's costing us more time, to try to manually do the things that the CAD system can be doing on our behalf. I mean, what was one of the things you mentioned? There are some just random things that I had no idea CAD could do that Commissioner Lucis was able to find out just by going to other 911 centers and talking to the people who do the training and administer the system that we can do automatically. And the more we automate, eventually, the more efficient we're going to be, because we have had a lot of complaints. And we have 911 operators, dispatchers who go through books. I can't even see a stack as high as what they go through. Books like this manually to figure out what they have to do, where eventually, once we populate CAD and once they're able to really use it, the CAD system will just tell them, okay, do this. All the boundaries with the fire services and mutual aid, all that stuff can be in there and automate that for them. So the learning curve won't be as high either on some of that stuff. You won't have to have experience, but please, be cooperative here and work with us and please examine the data. We'll give copies to anybody who wants it and help us figure out, help us get our numbers correct if they're wrong. And I'm sure we can provide the data, Commissioner Research used to populate that and maybe we did misread or maybe we didn't, and there's something that we're reading differently.
I've got a couple comments. The fire pays for all the unrated, matter of fact, we had a $1 million grant. So that, we've always paid our own way as far as that goes. You know where I got the idea from that? Fire chief in Fayetteville. Yeah. That's where I got that idea. So I didn't come up with it myself, it was from the fire chief. And I agreed with him. I said, there needs to be extra funding for the 911 center tape, and we try to help everybody throughout the county. So that was the fire chief in Fayetteville. I listen to everything everybody says, and I try to calculate and see whether they're right or wrong, and try to implement stuff. So basically what I'm telling you, the cost of this center, to run it correctly, is not cheap. And I did this so everybody would have a comment and come back to an idea. Because I guarantee you one thing, you're not even gonna do the research out of it. 59, 4 hours. Never mentioned.
I counted.
And I've also got a text from the mayor that said, why don't you have a meeting with all the municipalities? Now, that's a good idea. And I agree with that.
Well, we actually discussed that the other night, if you recall, having a meeting at least with the two that we have different arrangements with. Remember, we talked about because Oak Hill and Fayetteville have different requirements with the fire departments.
No, I did tell y'all to come to the presentation on the 17th. I'm gonna show you what the 911 center costs. In that meeting, I did tell all y'all that. Now, is that why y'all were here?
To my knowledge, we're not proposing to do anything with municipalities yet, but
We have a dialogue with everybody.
My suggestion,
Bring all the parties together.
and this is the opening of that dialogue. Without data, we don't have anything to discuss.
I mean, we can make up stuff, pull stuff out of the air. I've tried to put something together to discuss.
Madam President, I think basically what you said would foster that, and what Steve's saying. The mayor and the city manager have a meeting together and having a presentation proposed and get the input from them after they met with them, and then come back and talk to the various council.
Well, budget year doesn't start till.
And everyone start the same thing.
That's why this is being presentation now instead of
Right.
closer to budget.
I understood that. Like I said, I think it's great to have a sit-down meeting with all the city mayors and or mayors from every municipality, Thurman, Pax, everyone. So that everyone has the best interest in what you're proposing, which everyone should play a part in.
Well, I was even
Everyone
proposing,
should, and no one should be.
I was proposing, if you listen to what I said, that the county, for next year's budget, allocate or set aside $50,000 to $100,000 of its funding to support the 911 center. Now, I don't know how the other two commissioners feel about that,
And we won't know till budget year, maybe we can put it in a letter later on, but I'm making that suggestion from the county personally. And I don't know how they. think about it.
But I'm not sure exactly what I'm saying.
I have a couple of questions. If I may.
Around the table.
One is when on your expense, Amy, could you go to the far left of the sheet again? Far left corner. On the expenses, are they all recurring expenses or are some of them initial investments that require just a regular maintenance or?
Well, some of them are over a period of years will occur again. Some of them's not till 10 years. I think, Philip, the tire antennas, did you say every 6 to 7 years, something like that? 9 to 10. So really, the last 10 years.
Because we really need to budget out for all this stuff and not just say, oh gosh, we have a crisis now, like the batteries or whatever. We need to start budgeting.
That's why I put some of that in there to show there's upkeep, there's fees.
Right, that we haven't previously accounted for.
Right.
See, when you look at things like the recorder and all that, it's just, we've let stuff go over the years
Yeah.
and now we're paying attention.
Well, it's kind of like the cruiser issue and the memorial building maintenance and the courthouse. So the other question, is the training investment, like, do we need a $50,000 a year training budget, or is that to get everybody up to speed and
I
then we
just
can
do
go
that.
back to regular classes?
I apologize. I just threw that in there and I said I just put that together an estimate.
Okay.
But I mean, we can actually put together one. Could you put together one, how much it costs a year for the employees and everybody for me? So we actually have a.
I said,
Well, we do need continuing like if you could do it initial training, like upfront training based on position, like hopefully we have some leadership training to our supervisors and that sort of thing. To what you expect as they progress, but then also recurring training, like annual training to keep them fresh on updates we had or whatever that is.
That's their class that they have to do for the 2 years. And throughout those 2 years, we do continuing education training, to keep up with their certain things. Because they have to have so many hours.
Okay. Okay, well, those were my 2 questions about everything. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Chief Purdue?
I think a few meetings ago, we was talking about like an advisory group. Somebody from EMS, somebody from law, somebody from fire, representative represents that whole body.
The code provides for 2 different types of,
Advisory board.
well, and I'm not talking about just that one. There is another, like there's an emergency services type. One is a advisory board and one is some other type of board, because we got some legal advice on that. Another thing, and I'll just throw this in here since this has come up, that we discussed at the internal meeting earlier this week was some kind of incident team that the commission maybe get to a point where we have a major incident like the flood, like the forest fires, other things we've had, where we have criteria that will activate a major incident, and then we have certain people due to protocol that we determine in advance who are part of that incident and how we're going to respond, like checklists, like how we're going to get started, because we've had these couple of major incidents and we've come together really well. We're a small county and we're lucky that we've been able to do that. But I'd like for our 911, I would like for it not to be personnel dependent, that anybody can look at our SOP and this is what we're going to do when a major incident occurs. These are the people who are going to be involved. This is the communication system we're going to use and all the people who need to be on that, communication. So rather than have individual text flying around, like everybody is in the loop on everything. We did a little better with the flood, but there were still, I noticed as we went along that I had left people off some of my group texts that I sent, but yes, sir, I'm sure.
I'm President, before you came on board, and I think Commissioner Louise was, I know that Commissioner Brennan was, one thing, I agree with Steve on a lot of things, but especially the radio stuff, we used to get them through 911 center when I first started. And caught the Motorola, and everybody was in the park, and all this stuff, without mentioning names. We couldn't afford it. And we went to Kenwood's, because it's half the cost, we get 2 radios, these cruisers, which are approved. With 2 radios, don't even amount to 1 Motorola. And then we went to Siren and stuff, and then we talking about the board. I went back and looked through notes many years ago. It used to be a board this year, the chief, everybody was involved with that. And then the third and final thing is, I agree with you 100% on something, Byron, or not. You're gonna get what you pay for. This would, like I preached to you all about deputy sheriff, well, I preached about the 911 sheriff, and I backed him 100% on that. So the whole thing is, what you said, Commissioner, and I think what Mr. Perry said, one, getting everybody together. When the new schools went in up here at Oak Hill campus, I got with Kim. We all sat down. We invited 911 center, DOH, fire, everybody. And it was the first time I can remember 27 years sitting in that office that's happened. And Kim said, "This is great. We need to do that more often because it's not going to just take Oak Hill. It's not going to just take the state police. It's not just going to take I was going to take this whole county if something major would happen on that campus or any other building." And we've been doing training together, along with the active shooter training and all this stuff we brought along. So I think we are moving in the right direction. And I think what you said earlier too, President, if we can get all the cities involved, being Anstead, Mount Hope, I mean, we answer calls throughout the county. And it's just part of it. Don't matter to the municipality what, somebody calls 911, there's not officers there, guess what, we answer. So we want a good working relationship, and I think moving forward with this, with the presentation, after they get the copies and you set up a meeting, I think you get all the people that's involved in this. It's going to be a good thing. It needed to be done 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We lost that. I don't know why.
I was gonna ask you why.
I don't know why. I can make, I won't say why, but I think we all know why. But I think the leadership from the county, leadership from each municipality, and leaderships from each emergency service, being fire, EMS, law enforcement, and get together. So if something does happen, because we talked about it before, we know what we're going to do. They know what they're going to do. You have no idea what we're going to do. And we talked about that during that, when we had that big meeting. And that was years ago before the camp, like you said, the campus opened up, because even I said that. And that goes back into what Tommy said about having an extra dispatcher and what the chief said. I mean, I think we're moving in the right direction. And like you said, Madam President, don't get in a feud over it. Let's work through this to make it better for our citizens. That's what it's about. It's not about who's what, when, and where. It's about taking care of our citizens. I mean, that's a little bit, I know I get on it. I'm like Mr. Perry, I start talking TikTok. We have done a lot of things on that. We have done a lot of things with that. But in the call too, because we wasn't getting support. We came here as an association, being a fire association, about the problem 911 center years ago. We came to law enforcement too, and now things are finally happening. I do appreciate that.
Well, and things don't happen overnight. I mean, you know, this is one issue. The fire association and the 911 center have had a lot more time on the agenda this year than probably in decades. And a lot more of the commission's time. So, and believe me, that if that was the only issue we had this week, I would have been a happy camper. But we have had a lot of issues and they come up constantly. You know, we can't get through a flood without having a hazmat spill. And now, you know, that's revisited us. We still have hazmat issues from that spill. We still have raw sewage running down the mountain. I just found out this week from the floods. So, you know, we don't leave those issues behind. They continue to haunt us. But one thing, you know, on this, you know, 911 and the board and everything, we have a command and control issue too. You guys might need to know what's going on the ground. Everybody knows what's going on. But if we don't know, we can't call in the National Guard. You know, we can't fund the National Guard, which is something we now have to do sometimes. So, and there are lots of things that, you know, just to make sure our communication, that we need to work on SOPs. But I have to tell you, and you know, people may think I'm biased. I'm not. I didn't go out there and put all these numbers in a spreadsheet so we could criticize them and analyze them. He did. And the number of hours he put into it, I know has been phenomenal and still running a business. And for me, I didn't have the time to put into it and it's just like that I'm trying to run. So please, like, you know, keep in mind that while there might be, you know, some numbers that might be off, now we have something to look at. Now it's something to look at and work with and figure out what to do. And, you know, and we've all been, he gave us a copy of them the other day and kind of just, you know, so we could have a chance before today's meeting to look at it. And I still need more time to think about it. Like I said, a lot more about it now than I did when I saw it the first time. So please, like, let's be constructive about it and get the feedback. Do you have anything else to add on
No,
that?
I want to say, Mike, I was off 20.
Right.
20 calls. Mike's was right. I guess that's the only one that was right.
I could have pulled out the.
But we'll figure all that out. But the fact is now we have something to look at, figure out where we can maybe save money, make money. You know, any ideas are welcome at this point. But now we have something to look at because before all we had were complaints. We had a failed study of the 911 center at the tune of $10,000. We didn't end up paying the whole 15. We've had, you know, a ton of efforts to make something happen, and it took Commissioner Luis going in and actually getting his hands dirty and going to other 911s, studying and getting briefings to get us some hard facts to work with. Commissioner Brenneman has suggested December 14th as a meeting date for the municipalities. I think you probably have to go out to them. What do you want to do with that? Like just go out and ask them if they're available or?
Yeah,
you guys both
see what their
available?
availability is.
Where are you going to meet?
Probably here.
Or the Memorial Day. We got someplace bigger. We're gonna need, or maybe why don't we see if we can do Ruby? That's nice, and we can zoom there where we can at the Memorial Building.
This high podium just kind of isolates you.
Well, yeah, I don't want to do that. I think we need a working. We'll probably do a good round table over in that room at the Ruby Welcome Center if they'll let us use it.
And that way we can use the Zoom and that way everyone in the county can see what's going
Or
on.
Glen Ferris Inn is another one that's, of
No-
course, that'd be harder for Denise.
No Zoom there.
No Zoom because it's down there.
No internet's there hardly.
All right, well, we're gonna propose the 14th. I'm clear. Are you clear on the 14th?
Yep.
I assumed you were since you suggested it. So, we'll look into a location and reach out to the municipalities, the rest of them, and
We'll check on a venue first and then we'll come out with a time. It would probably be better to try to do it in the evening. That way, the people that work, because the mayors, I mean, they have to have a regular job too, usually in some places.
Mayors and city managers.
Yeah,
What time? John?
we didn't say that yet until we see if we can get a venue for it.
he's suggesting evening though, since a lot of people, you know, I know Mayor Scott, for example, he has a pretty hectic work schedule outside of his mayor duties.
He keeps the post office rolling.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a place marker in here just for the day and then we'll,
That December 14th.
yes.
And then Tom.
Yeah.
On your sheet, your percentages, they add up to 1% instead of 100%. So it should say,
1%.
it should say 30%,
1% of 37,000.
but look at your,
37,000.
And we were talking about.
we'll talk about that afterwards. I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
All right, moving on from the 911 center item, we had it.
Well, I was going.
Oh, you have motions, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I forgot.
That's okay. What is that, Carolina PRS? I want to gonna make a motion to approve the recording system and the system rack from CRS. Carolina Recording System,
Which,
for total with the racks, 142,300. First, excuse me, Ruth, is there enough in the funding to approve?
There's nothing to capital outlay, that's what I'm asking people here already budgeted.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
so this is within the 911 center already budgeted,
Already
approved
budgeted,
budget.
right. Capital outlay,
So we're just moving to allocate the money that's already budgeted.
right, you don't have to finish.
It still has to be approved, right?
Yeah, sorry to keep
That's okay.
interrupting. I'm
No,
just trying
that's
to clarify.
okay. Okay. Any questions?
Second,
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
that's definitely, that's needed right now. I mean, we've got to have it.
Okay. So we got
Yeah, we're
that.
done with that, Smith. I'd like to make a motion to make Tanja the acting director
Of the 911
of the
center.
911 center, acting director.
Okay, I second the motion. All those in favor?
Uh, And I'd like to do two more. I'd like to make a motion to make Philip the acting deputy director. The acting deputy director.
Do these involve salary increases or just,
Right now, stay exactly the way they are.
are we going for a? Are we going to?
No, hold
review
on,
it
hold
after
on.
a certain amount of time?
Hold on. I think we did have that. Hold on. Yeah, there would be two salary increases
Okay,
and do I need to make that motion over? For
yeah, let's,
let me scratch the other one. Yeah.
okay,
We'll
so,
make a motion for Tanja being an acting director, and a salary increase of $60,000.
what's your current salary?
50.
That's 62.
Raleigh County makes well, I'm not gonna say it.
How much?
Got to remember, Raleigh County is a different type
I
of
know it
animal.
is, that's why we lose people over there all the time, John.
Okay, so your motion is that the salary be effective right now, or if she's moved into the position?
Move into position, next pay, cycle. Yes,
I'm gonna wanna, go into executive session about the salary increases.
okay, you want to distribute that now?
Do you have any other motions besides those?
Yeah,
Okay, let's get the other ones and then we can do that.
I'd like to make a motion to, make Philip the active deputy director. Do I need to talk about the salary increase?
Mhm.
Okay. The salary increase up to 50,000 a year,
From,
I think it's 42.
okay. Okay, what, you have more motions?
I got one more. I'd like to advertise internally, the 911 center internally, for a training dispatch coordinator. And Tanya has the employee, description.
Internally, do we have one center?
Yes,
Now,
the,
do we currently have that position created?
no,
Okay, so we need to create
Create a
a
new position.
position
yes.
and advertise it internally.
That would be 40,000 a year.
Tanya was kind of in a position like that, wasn't she? Weren't you as training?
Something like that, but the person will actually be in the back,
And this person's salary would be what?
40,000.
40. Technically, the person's doing that job and other things. as well. Okay. All right, and is that it? All the motions with regard to your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to move now with those three motions pending that we go into executive session to discuss the terms of the salary increases. I want to ask
wasn't.
our attorney a couple of things. And then we'll come back in. I think on the internal ad, you have a structure, a chain of command, and it sounds like you want a director, deputy director.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Okay, well, I just want to lay out how the chain of command is going to look on the record when we get back. All right, so I move we go into executive session to discuss.
Second.
All those in favor? Back on the record at 12:46 from executive session, no decisions were made. Commissioner Brenneman has to leave early for emergency, so we are going to go ahead and address certifying the election results. So Holly,
Yeah.
what do we need to do here?
I think you just need to move to certify the election results as presented to you.
So move.
Okay, second, all those in favor?
Aye.
I think you had to have, with the exception of a couple races.
Well, correct, but they are not on the paper that we gave her.
Okay.
So we will have some races that you guys will do a 12-7, the congressional race and the amendments, because we're still waiting on places to declare their results.
Okay, so.
But
the
those aren't on you.
exceptions- So let's, just for the public's sake, we are not certifying the congressional races because some other counties haven't finished their count in time.
Mhm,
And the same thing for the 4 amendments.
correct.
But other than that, we are certifying every other race in
Correct.
Fayette County.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so that's done. We did.
Mhm.
We
Oh,
did.
okay.
Mhm.
All right.
That's
And-
done.
And I apologize, but I need to go.
And as a result, we are gonna look at a couple items that are on this agenda. We haven't finished with the executive session issues, the personnel issues, and we were discussing with council. Let's go ahead. I want to go ahead and address a couple other things on this agenda so people don't have to wait for us. Our response to farmland protection with regard to its questions of us. We have where's a list of those questions in the Farmland Protection Board has asked us if the board needs to establish an independent physical address. I think that answer was yes, it has its own funding and budget. Basically, the idea behind all of the boards, is you have your own funding and budget, that you will manage your own affairs, independent of the county resources. Is the board still represented by the prosecutor's office? We had an opinion on this with regard to the URA. In my view, the answer is no, because there are times when the board and the county may have differing opinions. And since prosecutor by statute represents the county, he is not able to represent both parties. What is your view, Mr. Singleton?
I think essentially that's the problem. As long as the county commission and the farm board are interests are aligned, it's not a problem. But as soon as those interests diverge, it becomes a problem.
So,
And I don't have, in terms of representation of county commission by statute, I am, or whoever the elected prosecutor, the attorney.
okay, so unless a conflict arises, it's your view that you can continue to represent them without an issue.
Well, the problem that I see though is that presupposes jumping in and making out.
Yeah.
And kind of picked up some conflict has arisen between the county commission and the farm bureau, the farm board. I just don't see how it's going to be possible for me to represent the county commission all the time and then represent the farm board only when there's not an issue between the county commission and the farm board.
Well, I mean, I agree with that. I think to be clear,
That's the problem. That's what I meant by jumping in and jumping out. The problem is, I just don't think it's practical, and quite frankly, I think I'm playing with fire.
from an ethics standpoint, if I try to represent them some of the time and only when there's not a perceived issue as far as conflict between the county commission and the farm board.
Now, along those lines, the farmland protection, just like every other board, is still under our liability policy. Isn't that true, Ruth, or is it not?
Yes, as long as they're actively on the county behalf, like, with whatever is back there, they are.
And they can't appoint second counsel, like if they're diverging interests in a suit. For example, the URA is a party to litigation right now that we are also party to, and you're a separate entity as far as getting counsel, like if you need separate counsel to litigate that issue, if we're on the same side. So the policy should cover getting a separate counsel for the board, should it need it. And that is in place if you're being sued over something. Now, a lot of these things, I don't think we're trying to litigate. I think it's more, some of it's a difference in philosophy, and I don't know that we necessarily need lawyers for that stuff. But unless you're trying to force us to do something you think we should be doing and we're not doing, and if you can convince him, you'll convince us, because all he has to do is look to the code and say, yeah, they're right. You should be doing this or shouldn't be doing this, and get us advice. And keep that in mind too. Like, if you're worried about, the statute for farmland better than we do. So it's probably better than Anthony does at this point. So, he'd have to look at it, give us an opinion. If we're wrong, we're wrong. So keep in mind that. So if something's coming up and that sort of thing, he is our lawyer. And if you want to go to him and say, here's our understanding of statute, let him read it and give us his advice, we can do that. So that would not preclude you from going to him, even if he doesn't represent you, and you're not hurting yourself by saying, this is what we think it says. If he comes back and says, I disagree, then okay, maybe we need to look to the state and figure out how we can, resolve this. Where would the board store its easement files? I feel like we need to have that storage with the clerk's office. Don't you? I mean, it's public record. It has to do with county business.
Recorded.
It should be recorded, right? with the
Yeah,
clerk's
they're
office.
recorded.
So,
And then I don't know, do we give originals back to anyone?
I would say for originals, you might want to keep your own. The board would want to have its own space for originals.
Because I mean, that's the typical procedures. We record it and then we mail it back to whoever it belongs to. And in the case like the county commission, most of the time those get stored in my office anyway. But in typical fashion, once it's recorded, we send the original back to the owner of said document.
So, I mean, I feel like the board should keep its records in its possession, however it feels like it needs to, whether it's, originals or copies, whatever you feel like you need to do to protect yourselves from somebody claiming, but you're making sure it's filed properly with her, and she is the formal record keeper for the entire county. So as long as it's recorded with her, filed with her, she's going to have it all. Hopefully at some point, we're going to have everything available online, where people can pull that stuff up and look at it. But I'd say as far as your internal record keeping, that should be up to you. But as far as making sure that it's official record, file it with her, and she doesn't, it just doesn't just have to be a deed or an easement. Like, you do have paperwork that you want recorded, like the minutes or something like that. The county clerk can record that. That's her job. So your public board, if you want to place for that, that's where that should go.
Good, that's the kind of, we have years of accumulation of minutes. and
Right.
A lot of other things.
And we're hoping to, get that electronic, but we've authorized a bunch of new scanners and stuff like that. And I know I would absolutely be for, if you guys wanted to scan some stuff, like we can lend you scanner, and they're really good. We had that one that was in here before, but they're really fast. Like, they can duplicate, they can do double-sided, they can do color versus, anything. And we do have equipment within the county for printing large things and things like that. And I wouldn't have a problem at all. And I don't know about you, John, but on a case-by-case basis, if you need to use something like that, I'm sure we can engage the elected officials who own that equipment to, like the assessor's office has some stuff, and tax office has some stuff that we can help you with. But as far as like your regular day-to-day administration, I feel like that should be your responsibility to figure out how you're going to do it, that sort of thing. let's see, the abrupt determination contractual arrangement suddenly became a conflict of interest. Because I don't think anybody was looking at when you're a separate entity by law, and that means you can sue and be sued on your own standing, kind of like the URA was. So URA is going to be the example I use because this has been tested with it, not with farmland at this point, and not with some of the other boards. But we had a difference of opinion with the URA about a lawsuit in which we were both named. And if we were able to control the URA, that lawsuit would have been settled, but we're not because it's legally its own entity, just like farmland protection is. So in the case, just like Anthony explained, if our interests diverge legally, then if somebody's suing you for something they think you did wrong, they're probably going to sue us too, but we might be able to get dismissed from the suit because they're going to say, well, they can't control those guys. So, they're out. And that's what happened in the URA suit. But legally, we have different positions sometimes. And that's the reason. And why are we just now realizing? Because there's a lawyer on the commission now. And there's a different prosecutor in office. And we didn't even know until the issue arose. And then it came up and it's like, who would have thought, so that's what it is. It's not about the board. It's all of our boards. And we have to look at how much control we have over the board. And if it stands alone, we can't have both counsel, because if we disagree, you guys have every right to disagree and do what you think. And we can't control you. So therefore we can't come from the same, be held accountable for your actions in the same way we would if we did control you. And some of these boards, we might be able to appoint some people and they might be able to get us for that, but who we appoint, but that's a whole different ballgame. Will our board need to find separate facilities? Not if you do it during work hours. The issue we were having here is we're having to pay people overtime for boards that have their own budgets to stay. And we were actually doing that for political committees too. The 2 executive committees were meeting here and we were paying, and we were kind of alarmed to figure that out. Oh my gosh, we've been paying staff to work overtime. So people can meet for political reasons when we have a county full of independents who probably would prefer we not do that. So that's why we're doing that. If the boards have their own budget, but everybody's welcome to reserve this conference room during business hours. And that hasn't been an issue at all. So that's where that came from. And that's it, I think. Were there any other questions that you guys had of us?
Oh, no, then there was the other agenda item about the clinic farm.
For Deputy McClintock's part. So Commissioner Bremen asked that we postpone that, and I apologize, but we didn't realize we were going to go as late. We've had some big issues on today. He is our expert in farmland protection. Okay. And so I think we're going to put that on December 7th, unless you guys want it on another.
This is just the mapping that shows you where that farm is.
I'll take this copy if you have it, and then we'll get it in this box. Okay. And I think, we all know Deputy McClintock, and I know Ruth has been to her farm a few times. So.
Yeah, and so all we're asking is for you guys to approve or disapprove going forward with the easement.
So you're not approving the easement yet, or you're looking at for the easement?
They have applied to sell us an easement.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need, before we proceed to expend the money to get an easement, we have to go to the county commission and ask if you have an objection. If you have no objection, then we will proceed to get the appraisal and the survey and all that stuff, put out all that money and settle on a price and get the easement. We don't want to do that and then come back to the commission and say, do you have any objection to this? And you say, oh yeah, we decided we don't want to sell that. Because you have the final say.
Right. So did you, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the staffing, it really is always in the past, and it's been basically farmland does all the work. And it comes before, and like what we ran into with Brian Sparks' property, Commissioner Louise, we were interested about that right away being written in there. And that's really the caveat of having you guys give that overall, you get a chance to look at the property and say, oh, wait a minute, isn't this where we were talking about doing some kind of,
Okay.
work? And so really, it's been pretty much simple up until more recent times.
Did he
Okay.
ask us to first?
Yeah, so he wants us, are you guys available for December 7th? That's our next meeting. We could put you on first in the morning. So you don't have to wait. Or we can put it, we're not gonna have another meeting unless we have an emergency until January. So we could do it either January 4th or December 7th.
Yeah, I know it is for us to move forward.
Yeah, I'm available.
Okay. Okay, well, if-
It just
if you don't-
can't run this long. I mean, we were on the agenda this morning and
Well,
here it is this afternoon. Yeah.
Like 5 minutes.
it is, the problem is it's on the exhibit, which we get to between other
yeah,
items.
I
We're gonna
understand.
put it as a main agenda item this
Okay.
time.
That's what we asked them if we have something in the future, okay.
Let's do that, and if we could. What time, well, what's the earliest we can do it, and I'll make sure we get to it on the time. Amy's gonna give you a time, and then we'll do it at that time, okay?
So we can do 9:25.
So 9:45, does that work? Okay, so we'll do it at 9:45.
I can be here.
And 100%, if I'm running on about something else, get my attention so I can get back to it, okay? Yeah, give me the wave or whatever, because, things come up every meeting and I don't want to have people here waiting, and when it's on the exhibit list, I don't have any time crunch.
Yeah.
So we'll get it on the main agenda and that way, I have a time and I'm going to try to get everything that's at the time it's stated. So I don't want to waste your time again, but he did have to leave and we've had kind of a rough
Yeah.
go today.
Okay. All right.
Good to go? Okay,
Thanks.
so I move we postpone that item till the 7th. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so 9:45 on the 7th.
Okay. Thank you.
We might be in touch base with you and make sure that we've got all of our.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I've seen things in there, so I'm sure we got most of it.
And we don't have that many easements in the county anyway.
Right.
We have 8 or 10 or something. We don't have.
Sure, yeah, anytime call.
Thank you. Okay, so let me get back to the agenda here. Wes,
B team again.
yeah, we can go back on the personnel.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so, I'm gonna go down the list here. Took care of item 7, we postponed item 8. 7, 9:45. Brownfield consultant announcement. Amy, could you present on that, please?
Okay, so we convened an interview committee of me and Abby and Angela. Abby was involved in year 3 of the 2018 brownfield that we got that took care of properties in Montgomery and Smithers. So I appreciated her input and her expertise. And then Angela took care of the 2010 brownfield that took care of a lot of dilapidated housing, asbestos testing. So she was very helpful as well. So we decided from the proposals that we received to interview 4 of the firms. All of them are completely competent to completely handle any of our issues, any of our projects that we came up with. They're all experienced. So it just came down to what was going to be the best fit for Fayette County and our projects. So out of the 4 consultants, we all came to unanimous decision that Greenbrier Environmental was the best fit for Fayette.
Okay, and who was that?
Greenbrier Environmental.
Greenbrier, gee, that's right. All right, and they did send an email to the commissioners and nobody had an objection to the recommendation, so I don't even think we need to confirm that decision, do we, or do we?
We've always took kind of decision.
Okay,
On
we'll
the
go ahead.
commission.
All right,
It's your grant money, so
so I move that we accept the recommendation of our staff on the consultant.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
thank you.
Okay, meeting schedule for 2023, we have a proposed schedule. From what I can tell, it looks like what we decided last year we were gonna do.
never,
Never works out that way. I
never
mean,
works out.
we reserve the right to change it.
Can we put the other days that we work in here too?
All the other, I know, right? We don't get credit. We have to meet every third day in February and every week in March.
I'm good.
Statutory reasons.
Sorry. You're gonna
Um,
post this, is that what this, we can approve this today?
Yeah, and we might as well mention that we are striking the December 22nd commission meeting unless there is a compelling reason to have it, because it's Christmas week and nobody wants to have a meeting that week. So, I've looked through it, subject to changes based on the commissioner's schedule later in the year. I mean, we approve the calendar as presented. If anybody wants to look at it,
Yeah, I second.
all those in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Now, holiday list.
And the holiday list is straight from the Division of Personnel, West Virginia website. It's standard days that we use. They do not list out Juneteenth, but I'm pretty sure last year the governor said that they were gonna combine that with West Virginia Day since we were to get that off.
Yeah, that was a mess this
Yeah.
year, that Juneteenth, because it was a holiday, then it wasn't a holiday, then it was holiday, so the courts were gonna have to be here, this one's gonna be here. Fortunately, they went ahead and went with their original opinion and let everybody have the holiday.
We do
But-
put the caveat in there at the bottom that if the governor or president gives us a holiday, that we'll follow whatever they do.
Yeah, I see that. So right now we've got New Year's, Martin Luther King, these are all the federal and state holidays, President's Day, Memorial Day, West Virginia Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Lincoln's birthday, which is the day after Thanksgiving, which we're acknowledging Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And that is, again, aligned with what the state does, which keeps things clean because the Supreme Court controls what the courts do, so the courts have to be open, the county has to be open. And anything declared at the whim of the president or the governor. So I move that we approve it.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ruth, will you text John, see if he can stamp for him?
Oh, no, okay, I'm sorry.
Probably John. Not with the bad habits.
Okay, we've asked our staff to prepare a letter requesting financial assistance for Carrollton Hollow. Because we just learned this week that, there's still raw sewage coming down from the prison into the hollow, and, our chief health officer even mentioned to me yesterday, she said it was so pungent driving through with their windows up that it was disgusting. I wasn't aware, I have not been down there since, probably July during the floods, and didn't know this was still an issue. We thought DEP had mitigated it, we thought the state had gotten involved. We've since learned from Kanawha Falls PSD that, they haven't been getting any help from anybody, and it's still an issue. They've basically been putting Band-Aids on it, according to DEP standards, but I will tell you that Dr. Stewart was unconvinced that they were sufficient given her own observation when she was there. So no real fault of the PSD, because it's already running, on a shoestring budget, and then, $7 million repair comes in. So the only thing I noticed, Amy, in the letter, that I think needs to be addressed, and let me go back up here. It looked really good, by the way.
I added, that it's flowing into, Smithers Creek. Because I didn't realize that there was a real name.
The other thing is, when it says we implore our, in the last paragraph, implore our state leaders to assist, state and federal leaders.
Okay.
We'll take money from whoever it is, we'll give it, but But at this point, the estimated repair cost to fix the sewer pipe damage, and it was 2.5 miles of sewer pipe that was completely destroyed, along with another 3,000 feet that were impacted by sediment and rocks blocking the pipes. That was what was destroyed. We had a Secretary Ward stated it was a top priority, and he proposed some options. And then 3 months later, we really haven't had any follow-up or help. Now, what do you know, Kevin?
So on my calendar, I'm having, it's showing that there is a recovery call from wastewater protection tomorrow at 10 a.m. It's got 30+ participants. Looks like John Double, Leslie Taylor, Commissioner Brenneman, state people, North Falls PSD, Jonathan Gross, Carl Harris. There's all kinds of people on that call.
And they are on the board at North Falls PSD for the record. So,
I can forward this if like anybody else that wants to people on my call.
okay,
But I have little to no information on it either.
let's, Amy, at the end of that strike follow off the panel. It's sufficient. And you added somewhere that Smithers Creek.
Experiencing raw sewage flowing through their neighborhood and into Smithers Creek.
Which flows into the Canal River.
Yeah, that.
Ultimately flowing into the Canal River, something like that. So we're sending this letter to the policymakers and department heads with the state, all of our delegates, the heads of each of the legislative bodies, to try to get some attention to the issue. The media is how we found out about it. Someone called and asked what our comment was, and I'm like, I felt like it was June. I said, what are you talking about? I haven't heard anything about this. And the guy said, and he had to go back and find out how recent it was. And we had some growth last week. So it's unacceptable. And I'll tell you, the people up Council Holler are not complainers. And I'm not surprised we haven't heard of it by now, because they're used to their lot in life having to suck it up, but they shouldn't have to. So I move that we approve and send this letter.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And I know for the record that Commissioner Brenneman does support it.
Shall I, since I have to be on Elmer, is the address?
7 million is the fix, and I think the temporary fix is half that. What were you saying?
Oh, that's fine. We can talk about that in a minute. But E.L. Robinson did write back to me yesterday and said it's basically the only way to fix it is to fix it all.
Yeah.
So,
That call too tomorrow.
yeah, and we've already, it was apparently required to get funding. By the recommendation of Region 4, we have already said that we could not afford to fund it. And apparently that was a bureaucratic thing we had to jump through to justify getting funding. That doesn't mean that this commission doesn't and isn't willing to invest something if we had to, but we had to do that administratively to get anybody to consider funding the request. So we cannot afford to pay for the whole thing. That is a fact. But anyway, just for the people of Cannleton, it's not that we didn't care, and that, I understand the head of the PSD was like, well, the commission already said it couldn't pay for it. Well, commission can't pay for the whole thing, but also had to send a letter to that effect in order to get some assistance on it also. Next item, we are going to, when do you want to do the payroll? On the 7th? Okay, well, I'll move to postpone for the time being, to the 7th. If you need to move it before the meeting, you can just take it off the agenda.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so postponing item 15 for payroll. To the 7th. All right, hazmat spill. So we have to go back into executive session for 2 matters. One is to complete the personnel discussion with the Vice Legal Counsel for 911 center, changes Commissioner Luis has proposed. And, Commissioner Brenneman is fine with us going ahead and voting on that. I asked him if he wanted those decisions postponed, and he said no. Emergency notice. I asked, county administrator to put this on the agenda. Another last minute thing that we heard. Kanawha County has officially informed us, Kanawha County Commission has come in and said that Fayette County citizens showed up to its staff meeting or to its commission meeting and complained about hazmat issues from the hazmat spill back in June that happened right after the floods. And that was the first we had heard from the Kanawha County Commission, even though it impugned us in the letter saying, suggesting that perhaps we were ignoring concerns of our own citizens that hadn't been brought to our attention by them 2 weeks ago when they heard about it. We got a letter yesterday from them. The Gazette Mail did hear about it because I read about it in the Gazette Mail. That's the first I'd heard that there was any issue at Paint Creek. So what's apparently happening is when it rains, there was some foam coming out of the ground. We heard about that, but didn't hear where it was or any other detail or who complained. We heard that Kanawha County was going to order more testing, and then we saw the big Commissioner Carper had put something in the paper about there's something going on. We're going to pay for additional testing. Our testing had just been completed, and the drinking water came out, and nobody's going to say the drinking water anywhere in this state is safe. But what they're saying is the contaminant was below the required amount present in the water. So it was sufficiently clear by DEP and health DHHR standards of the contaminant for it to be safe to drink, as safe as it was before the spill. That had already happened. It just happened. And we have received to this date, even from Kanawha County Commission, it seems to be very informed on this matter, where in Fayette County the issues of concern are. I've been in a regular dialogue with the health department about it, trying to get more information so we can determine whether we need to do additional testing. And we may need to, because we are suing for some compensation for all of the expense that we went to when we responded to it. Fayette County was right in the middle. They had to reroute traffic through here. We had additional law enforcement resources allocated. Our fire departments were involved in the cleanup. Our 911 center was involved. So we do have expenses that we're trying to recoup. And I'm not sure what is behind the timing of this notice from the Kanawha County Commission. But what I do know is it's the first we've heard from them, despite them apparently knowing about some issues that we should have been brought to our attention for a couple of weeks. So I do want to move that we go into executive session to finish the 911 center discussions, but also to consult with our legal counsel on the Paint Creek issue and Prosecutor Siliberti, whose office is also involved because there was a DUI that caused a hazmat spill. So we can discuss the implications of the request from Kanawha County, whether we want them to pay for our testing, which I heard through the grapevine, they were planning to only test on the Fayette County side for some reason. Or whether we want to pay for it ourselves and what the implications for the case are and whether the information we have justifies further testing based on when we got our results in. So we are going to reach out to Dr. Stewart at Health Department. She's on standby to meet with us about this. And Kevin will call you in when we have that discussion.
If you want to hear about it as well, came in this morning in Berkeley.
From
Mr. Donnie Haynes, who is the deputy director of the UCR. You're going to take pretty cool. I can let you go into executive session to let you see it.
I want to see it before I discuss it on record. I mean, I want us to have seen it. And then we will discuss it on the record, but I want to read it first. Huh? All right. Let's go. What? Oh, yeah. All right, we're back on the record and with our hair on fire, because we have a meeting with fire marshal. So, with regard to the first motion, to make Tanya McMullen the acting, Director of 911, I second that motion. All those in favor? Aye. With regard to the salary, I had some concerns about promoting and acting and paying, so I would like to propose that we, rather than start the salary immediately, that we start that first pay period in January after a successful trial period as acting director, and at that point, make her permanent director.
I'm with you, I'll second that.
Okay, so you withdraw your motion? Why don't you
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, with regard to Philip, acting deputy director, I second that motion. All those in favor? Aye. And I propose a similar strategy with regard to bringing them back up and making them permanent at the end of the trial period.
With the pay period, with
Yeah.
the pay amounts that we talked about.
Yes, and do you withdraw that motion for the time being? Okay. And with regard to the training dispatch coordinator, I second the motion to create that position. All those in favor? Aye. And we've asked Tanya to modify that position description and send it back for editing. Once we all agree to the editing, we'll go ahead and post it internally. So with that, we did discuss with our lawyer on the environmental issue. And he's going to prepare a letter for the commission to reply to Kanawha County Commission with extraordinary measures that we've taken so far that actually exceed those of what they've been doing and the level of expertise to reply and assure them that we are doing our due diligence with regard to our own citizens here in Fayette County. Motion adjourned.
Second.